Okay, we are recording. Nick, how are you, mate?
I'm very good.
Wonderful.
Very good.
Wonderful. I've seen you out and about a lot lately. I saw you on Sunday brunch the other
Oh,
day.
good. Yeah,
Like
great.
yeah, so you kind of you working hard at the moment getting the record out there.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, we've just been on tour for so that was the beginning of the sort of album release 2 weeks, I think. So we just did that and did some gigs up in Lancaster and Hull, and then just did a week of in-stores in um uh record stores around the country. Great.
Wonderful. Well, we're going to talk
Yeah.
about some fantastic records today as well. And Nick, I'm going to ask you to kick things off and tell me the
Yeah.
song that you regard as having the greatest ever intro, please.
Well, it's a good question because back in the Kaiser Chiefs days, because I used to be in the Kaiser Chiefs, we used to come on stage to Money for Nothing by Dire Straits. Not initially, we came onto lots of different things, but this was the best. I mean, this ran for a few years, and we had it really well timed. And it was brilliant. Our lighting guy, I mean, we're talking like big places, arenas and stuff, and the lighting guy was doing with the drums, doo-doo-doo, all that. Doo-doo-doo, doo-doo. I want my. Oh, it was amazing. So that is whenever I hear that song with Sting singing his head off,
Yeah.
uh, I I think of going on stage, and that's a good buzz there.
It's about as big as the 80s ever got, that production, isn't it? I don't know if it
Yeah,
gets any bigger.
no, it's a good point. Yeah, yeah, it's big, and it's weird because when you listen to the album like Before Brothers in Arms by Dire Straits,
Mm.
it's low key and sort of it's for musos, isn't it?
Yeah.
And then when you get to Money for Nothing, it would have been a real shock for people
Mm.
because that's the first time. Oh wait, actually, no, we used to listen to. My dad used to put Dire Straits on in the car before Brothers in Arms, but when Brothers in Arms came out, I was like about seven or eight. Everyone was singing that, and the video
Yeah.
was huge, and they just suddenly became like the biggest band in the world for a minute.
Yeah, that probably is still one of the biggest selling records of all time, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. Do
Brothers in Arms.
you know why? It was like when CDs came out, there was
Right.
only a handful of things you could buy, and the like one of the first ever CDs was Brothers in Arms, which is genius.
Yeah.
So if you bought a CD player, you bought Brothers in Arms.
I remember like looking and like at Dire Straits back then when I was a kid and being kind of intrigued because the video was like very state of the art and it
Yeah,
was,
yeah,
it like it was sent from the future and seeing sort of Mark Knopfler and the band and thinking, oh God, yeah, they look like my dad's mates. They must
yeah,
be in their 50s. And they were probably in their mid 20s, but like they just looked like lots of bands around then just looked like old men in
yeah.
their 20s.
I love that because it was sort of yeah. If you look at the 80s, because there was a lot of people who'd been in bands in the
Mm.
70s, and then so you got Sting, but also like Robert Palmer and
Yeah, Phil Collins.
Phil Collins. Anyone who's been in a band in the 70s was suddenly given this sort of like even like the Eagles, like Don Henley and stuff. They were like it was a thing that if you could be 40 in the 80s and like on MTV. It's pretty good.
Love it. Love it. Um, how do you approach intros, Nick, from because when the Kaisers first started, um, I guess I should also say that I won a pub quiz the other night because you had to guess the band in five links, and the first link was they used to be called Parvo, and
All right.
I chimed in, won the pub quiz on the strength of that, my
Very good.
muso knowledge. but but back in the days when you was writing for the Kaisers and such, the way that people would be getting their music would be probably different to how they're getting the music now. Obviously everything has moved into pretty much streaming
Yeah.
and a slight resurgence in vinyl. And we're seeing things like TikTok being used now to market music as well. And I think with things like TikTok, it seems to be kind of catering to maybe a tightening of attention spans and I
Yeah.
wonder if any of that, if at all, kind of factors into your creative process as a songwriter in your
It
own
has
right and as
done,
a
yeah.
songwriter for other artists as well. And does
But
it differ?
yeah. Even back in the writing Kaiser Chief songs. I used to play a lot of stuff at my mum and dad's house, and I used to play on the piano that was in there. And so a lot of the times I'd write a song and I'd play it to my mum first. Like I remember, like stuff like Average to Riot and Ruby and stuff. She'd be the first person to hear like the first ever version, like the first ever. I've just written this. Check this out. And I I remember playing her some stuff from another album. It might have been second album or third album, and she was going on about intros and how you've got to get better intros because you're losing me here. And like, so I was like, okay, okay. So I always think of that because I remember like I Picture Right's got a great intro and it gets you straight away. So in my head, I'm always thinking, yeah, we should try and get people straight away, which is kind of a hindrance. It's a flaw and a good thing because it means that you're sort of filtering through other people's minds all the time or ears, and what you should be doing is just writing songs that you think are dead good. But I suppose I am that person as well. I want to hear good intros, and so intros have always been important.
Does that differ though from you writing for yourself to writing for other artists?
um
If you're writing for a more
yeah,
commercial pop artist, is there more pressure on that kind of
yeah,
TikTok-esque short?
see some songs you see sometimes now there's songs that come out and the singing starts on the first beat of the song,
Hmm.
which is just appalling. um but yeah, you can have a good intro, but without the singing straight in. Yeah, but you do try. You don't have long intros. I mean, people in the '70s. I think that's when you were getting the biggest intros, really.
Yeah.
'70s and maybe '80s. Um, but now, yeah, if I'm writing for somebody else, yeah, I try and hit a few targets. Like you want the chorus to come in pretty quick, but I mean, I've always done that as well. I've always been very lean, trimming songs, trying to get as much less meat on the bone as you can, because that's
Yeah.
just what I am as a songwriter, really. I'll never write a sort of Pink Floyd style.
A money for nothing.
Oh, I suppose I'd like a money for nothing, but that's just hook after hook, though, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just the slow builders one. I just never been into the slow build, really.
Yeah. I mean, good luck getting that intro over the line of a record company in this day and age.
Yeah, well, it's still full of hooks. I want to hear it now. Can we hear it?
It's I mean I'll definitely sling it on the podcast for sure.
I just want to hear it. I'm just going to put it on my Spotify just to hear the first note, see what happens. Oh yeah, it's the build of that synth,
Yeah.
isn't it? And then Sting comes in.
Yeah. And before you even get the riff, the drums are off the fucking scale,
Yeah,
aren't they?
it's just amazing. It's just the best. It gives me chills. Even just I heard 1 second of it, then I'm like, got chills. So maybe you could look on YouTube and look for some times when Kaiser Chiefs would come onto it because that's pretty good. And one time we used to tour with, well, we didn't used to tour. We did tour a couple of times with Foo Fighters, and Dave Grohl ran into our room one time and in our dressing room was just like, guys, you've got the best. That is the best intro ever in the whole of rock and roll. That's it. You've done it. And he was like, but you've got to do this. This. So we did.
Fantastic. Nick, tell me the first song you remember hearing that had an emotional impact on you, please.
Okay, so I've put a few actually. So I think when I first like so when I was at primary school, something happened in about 86, 87. So I'll have been about 7 or 8 again. Um, these songs came out. I was totally blown away by music in about 1987, and it was everything from Five Star to Reet Petite by Jackie Wilson. So it's and these are just things that were in the charts. Um, uh, Caravan of Love, but also Michael Jackson was huge. So I was into Bad. Mainly, I mean, Thriller was a bit. I mean, we did listen to Thriller, but it didn't really get me as much. Bad came out, and that was suddenly like, okay, that's my album. That's for me, that.
Hmm.
And but Man in the Mirror, I just can't stop loving you. I think that somehow totally got me like so hard.
That was the lead single, wasn't it? I just can't stop
It was
loving
the first
you.
single, which is weird. But
Mm,
um, and then there was others. So I put Carly Simon as well, Coming Around Again. There was something about that.
that
I don't
song's
know what.
so good, Nick.
I just can't. It just some songs just totally take me to a place, and I'm switched off from the rest of the world. That's one of them.
That song ends too quick. Right at the end, she starts singing that I do believe, I do believe, I believe in love.
Yeah,
And it's just beautiful the way she sings it. And then she starts singing it's coming around, it's coming around, it's coming around again. And it fades and it's like, it's not enough. She can keep going. I think,
yeah.
honestly, in all my years of being in bands, I only ever covered one song and it was Coming Round Again. And
Wow.
like, I bloody love that song,
Amazing.
Nick.
Yeah, brilliant. And Stevie Wonder, I put three, I think. No, I've got one, two, three, four. I've got four. And the other one is Stevie Wonder for Once in My Life.
Yeah.
I used to be like in the car, I'd be like almost crying. I don't know why. It was so vulnerable in that song. It's just like, it was really, it's very, very moving, that one. I don't know why.
I mean, you've referenced listening to sort of music in your dad's car a couple of times now,
Yeah,
and obviously your mum vetoing your intros for not being
yeah,
good
yeah.
enough. Like, how musical was home growing up?
No, I mean, they were into music, but they didn't play any. Oh, no, do you know what? My mum played the piano for when I was really little. My mum would play the piano. She had piano lessons. Um, and that's there was something about she used to play Fur Elise, you know. And I can remember being in bed and hearing this sound and going, I want to do that. That got me as well. So I'll have been 6 or something then, and going, I
Wow.
want to get piano lessons. So I did. I got piano lessons with the same teacher, Mrs. Wilson, and I think Fur Elise really set me on track to get in because it was doing something to me that wasn't just listening. It was more like the the body was reacting to it.
And in regards to that feeling listening to that, and I just can't stop loving you and Carly Simon. If you had to
Yeah.
pinpoint like the emotion, what do you think the emotion was?
I think it's somebody else telling you something. It's you feeling. I suppose it's empathy, isn't it? You're the song is so good and the performance is so good that you're feeling their feelings.
Yeah,
That's the power, isn't it?
absolutely, absolutely. Let's stay in the farm. Do you know what? Before we move on to the next question, it's interesting that you said sort of 86, 87, because I think that's quite a a moment in like in chart music in the UK that kind of gets ignored because it's kind of
Yeah,
post like the Smiths and
yeah,
all that kind of early 80s new romantic stuff and all that kind of evolution in synth pop and stuff and it's pre Manchester and all the stuff and
yeah.
acid house and it's
It's
like that
also remember Steve Silk Hurley. I know you'll know Steve Silk Hurley, right?
Jack Your Body.
Jackie Body. That was I think that was 86 into 87 Christmas. It was not Christmas from number one because I think it was to do with Caravan of Love by the House Martins
Yeah,
and Steve Silk Hurley. Somehow I think they were both number one, but anyway, in different weeks around Christmas.
yeah, I
And
just think
that was so huge because you've got I think with Reet Petite coming back because you've got a lot of those Levi's ads would
yeah,
keep coming back. So you'd have like uh I don't know when Should I Stay or Should I Go came re-released, but it was around that time.
yeah, Percy Sledge, When a Man Loves a Woman.
Yeah, so you get all these classics, and then obviously Five Star were huge
Yeah,
in my house anyway. Bros, I mean, well, that was a
yeah.
little bit later, just 87, 88, because I can pinpoint all my musical beginnings in this one class at school, and it was a top year at primary school. So it was, yeah, 86, 87.
Have you heard Can't Wait Another Minute by Five Star in recent times?
No,
I'll tell you what, mate, it holds up. It's
I haven't listened to Five Star since 86, 87.
Can't Wait Another Minute. Still
Right?
still holds up.
Okay. Check it out.
I had Doris and Denise on the show a couple of years back, and yeah, it was I had to go back and revisit all them songs, and yeah,
No,
that one still holds up. It's a proper little pop gem. That
I thought they were brilliant. I think.
Mm. Romford's finest, mate. They were from my neck
Right,
of the woods.
right.
Right. Tell me the song that reminds you of your time at school, please, Nick.
Okay, well, I've just talked about primary school, and there's a lot there, but I think the one, I think it's important to have one that's sort of the sort of thing that you discover. And I think for me, the the first thing I discovered was well, it was kind of Manchester stuff. So I went to I got two buses to school, and when I got on the second bus, there was some older kids that were into like Happy Mondays and Stone Roses and The Farm and In Spiral Carpets. And I was only 11 at this point, but somehow I think my brother was the bridge because he was older than me. But somehow, like somebody gave me a tape of it had In Spiral Carpets on one side and Pills and Thrills by Happy Mondays on the other side, and I just listened to that, and then I really got in. And so the one I've really thought, what does like? The one that reminds me is Hallelujah by Happy Mondays, because there was something absolutely magical about that, and it would go on for a long time, and you could probably do half a bus journey
Mm.
just in that song. It was amazing, and like the Walkman was so big
Yeah.
because you were just I don't know. I think I used to go to school. I could go. If I got there on time, I had to get up about 20 minutes early. But if I got there like 2 minutes late, I could have another 20 minutes in bed. All to do with the bus times. I was always late and I always was on the bus on my own. So I'd just be on Walkman. It'd be amazing.
Did hearing, like, obviously going from like the Mondays and sorry, from the kind of Michael Jackson and all that kind of sort of pop stuff that was happening in '87, and to then hear things like the Inspirals and the Mondays and the Rosies and seeing them as well, and
Oh,
did,
yeah.
did that seem a little bit more maybe left field, a little bit more exciting and
Yeah, yeah.
interesting?
Well, it wasn't stuff that my dad was playing in the car. It was stuff that always on the radio. It was stuff that, sort of had to discover. So it felt, I mean, I remember playing Happy Mondays in the car to my dad. I was going, no, listen, listen, this is amazing. And he'd be like, oh, it's rubbish.
But that's what you want your
Yeah,
dad to say at that
yeah,
age, isn't it? If your dad's liking it, it's not cool.
yeah.
Did you? I mean, did you enjoy school?
Yeah, it's good. It's fine. I was, yeah. It never occurred to me whether you had to enjoy it or not enjoy it because you just had to go.
Yeah.
So I just did it. It was fine.
Did you know what you wanted to be?
Yeah, I was in a band from like, when I first got to secondary school, I started like I was playing in band. I was playing the drums like in lunchtime with older kids, which was really important. Like because they'd be like fifth year, sixth formers, and you'd go along and they were playing like they'd have a little band, and I'd go like I want to play. I didn't even play the drums at this point. I just thought I could do it, so I just started doing it, and that sort of acceptance was good because like older kids think you're worthy of playing with them, which made you feel good. It's almost like doing a gig every lunchtime. It was good.
Was
It
you
was
a
great. So
confident?
I was always into bands, and I was sort of pretty like not at primary school. I always thought I'd do something else, like dentist or something weird, like something normal. And then I wanted to be a chef. I was inspired by that. I was talking about this the other day, and no one remembered it. The TV show Chef with Lenny Henry.
Yeah, of course.
Absolutely, I wanted to be a chef because of that. Um, anyway, then I just thought, I don't know. I don't think I ever thought, oh yeah, I'll be in a band. It'll be easy and like that'll be it. I don't really. I was just always in a band. I just loved it.
Was you a confident kid then to be kind of walking into a rehearsal room with a load of big kids?
I mean, I was confident. Yeah, I've got a daughter as well, and she's very confident. She just totally reminds me of me, really,
Yeah.
which is great. I also think it's really important not to push a load of cool music on her, like like alternative music, because I think back to like what we just talked about, like all that stuff, the Michael Jackson and Five Star and all that. That's important stuff to get into. Like current chart stuff, I think is that's where it all starts. and then you start discovering. So yeah, I was confident. Yeah.
I couldn't agree more. I've my whole life has been working within music in many sort of different sort of factors of it, and I've never once kind of pushed anything on my kids. It's like just go and listen to what your mates are listening to. Go and listen to what's on whatever Spotify is saying. Give that a listen, and and I think they find their way.
Yeah.
And my youngest he's 19, and last summer she just come down to the kitchen wearing a Meat is Murder t-shirt, and like, oh fuck me, like, I could feel myself welling up. I thought this has just happened. Like I haven't even had to kind of like make this happen. But
Yeah, yeah.
and I also think it's really interesting how some songs, like however old sort of children are, I think there's some songs that find their way into the sort of very fabric of everything. Like an example being, I was driving my kids about 7 or 8 years ago, just driving down the road, and I probably had some sort of absolute 80s on or something like that. And Aztec Camera, Somewhere in My Heart come on.
Oh yeah.
And which is as close to perfect as it gets, right?
Yeah.
And both of them are singing. And I was like,
Wow.
how the hell do you know these songs? And it's like, I just know this one. And I just find that's really cool that some
That's it,
songs
yeah.
are just kind of there. Do you know what I mean?
Well, I was Bohemian Rhapsody was on in our car recently, and I was like to my daughter, "You better learn these words because at some point you're gonna need to know them, because at some point you're gonna be singing them out loud with a big crowd of people."
Yeah.
And also the other day, you said about the Meat is Murder t-shirt. Um, my daughter came. We were choosing songs like what it's your turn to choose one. It's your turn, and she said, made my life. Stonehenge, Spinal Tap.
No way.
Because we've driven past Stonehenge a couple of times, and I've done it quite a few times, but whenever I drive past Stonehenge, I've got to put Stonehenge on,
Yeah, of course.
and so she just out of nowhere just went, "Can you put Stonehenge?" And I Stonehenge. Amazing.
Oh, that's wonderful. All right, for track 4, Nick, I'm going to ask you to tell me the first song you remember buying from a record shop, please.
Yeah, there was I didn't buy any singles. I don't think. I must have done so. But if we're going back to childhood, then well, I put Terence Trent D'Arby, the introducing the hardline according to Terence Trent D'Arby, which was my first album I ever bought for myself. I bought that and Johnny Hates Jazz, but Johnny Hates Jazz doesn't sound as cool, so I
Yeah.
used to love that.
Um, I think introducing the hard line is an absolute banger, mate.
Yeah,
And have
amazing.
you um have you ever read the story about how he was discovered?
No, tell me.
So
No, I haven't.
I had him on the show. I forget his name. One half of Heaven 17, the producer that produced, got Tina Turner's career back on track. Oh God, what
Okay,
is his name? Anyway, one half of Heaven 17, and he heard this 3-track demo that had "Wish Him Well," "If You Let Me Stay," and
sign your name.
"Sign Your Name." And he was like, "Oh my God, this guy sounds like Sam Cooke. Like these are great songs." And so he arranged to meet him, and as he's walking to the studio to meet him, this guy walks past him, and he says to his mate, "I think I've just seen one of the most beautiful human beings I've ever seen." As Terence Trent D'Arby sort of
Yeah.
walked past, and then Terence D'Arby turns up at the meeting. And he's like, "Holy shit! There's these songs and that face," and then he
Yeah.
starts dancing. He's like,
Oh my God,
"Oh
yeah.
mate, he's ticking all the boxes here." And yeah, he's. I think that record, and I think the intro to "If You Let Me Stay," just that piano, that just like that slide down the piano, and then it just comes
Oh yeah, yeah.
straight in. Ah, oh, what a voice!
Yeah, it's good that. That was big. I've got it on record now. I still sometimes put it on. I'm glad that the first album I bought was something I can still listen to. It's pretty good.
Yeah, normally like that's where this is normally the question where everyone drops a real howler, and
Yeah, like Johnny Hates Jazz. I mean, Johnny Hates Jazz was okay, but I wouldn't listen to it now.
I had a guy on the podcast, and oh, I do apologize, I can't remember his name, and he was a producer and a songwriter, and I sort of said, I didn't know much about him, and it had been the episode had been sort of thrown on me last minute, so I was like, oh, I can wing it, it'd be fine, and just got chatting, and he was like, oh yeah, no, I produced XTC, and then I was like, oh wow, and then he was like, yeah, and I was just doing some stuff like helping out the Cure, and then I ended up playing the double bass on Love Cats, and I was
Oh,
like, holy shit. I was thinking, wow. And he was like, yeah, no, I wrote a few songs. I wrote Torn for Natalie Imbruglia, well, not whoever it was before Natalie Imbruglia
yeah,
covered it,
yeah.
and some of Pixie lots. So, anyways, chatting away, and he was like, yeah, no, and I sort of left the Cure. I was in the Cure for like 5 years, left the Cure, and then yeah, then I joined Johnny Hates Jazz, and I was like, did not see that curveball coming.
Wow. So, so there was a song, something about a hero, wasn't there?
There was Shattered
I don't want to be a
Dreams.
hero.
Yeah, I don't want to be a hero. Shattered Dreams, and if I could
Oh,
turn back the clock.
yeah. No, can't remember how it goes, but anyway. Yeah, they were good singles. I didn't need the album, but they
Yeah, did
good
not
fun.
expect us to be talking about Johnny Hates Jazz
Uh,
today, but yeah, why not? Why not?
quite bad.
All right, well, look, let's go clubbing, Nick, and I'm going to ask you, please, to tell me the song that soundtracked your years going clubbing, please.
I don't know if I've got the right answer here. I'll be honest. I just wanted to put this because I like to put this song in, and so it's like my favorite song. It's "The Rat" by the Walkmen. So it's
Mm.
not really a clubbing song. It's but it's also something that I used to DJ in clubs, and this was like my favorite song to put on. But so it does remind me of clubbing and being in clubs, and it's just amazing. I mean, if you don't know this song, then it's worth listening to. It's got everything, and especially the drumming. Um,
Oh, the drumming, mate. Like, I mean, I've run an alternative venue for 23 years,
yeah.
and we still drop that every single weekend, and
All
it
right.
still
Good.
goes off like a bomb, mate. It
Oh,
is
good.
absolute. When I first saw that video, that black and white video, and the first time I'd even I'd never heard of the Walkman,
Yeah.
and I was just watching that drummer, and I was like, mate, that is insane, and like, there's nothing missing in that record. Every bit
Yeah.
of every part is perfect, isn't it?
It's brilliant. You got that middle bit, which now at the time when I was 20, 21, maybe 22, that lyric about, oh no, let's get it right. What's it in the bridge where it goes,
When I used to
I,
go out, I would,
I knew everyone I saw.
yeah,
Now I go out alone if I go out at all.
yeah.
Amazing how amazing how things map out because I'm like that. No,
Yeah,
I do go out, but sometimes I'll sit in the pub on my own. Very rarely, but I
yeah.
do pick up that song.
I think
Thinking
he's as far as indie bangers go, it's up there, isn't it?
it's amazing. It's perfect.
I've got to be honest though. I went out and bought Bows and Arrows on the strength of
Oh yeah,
Rat being something
yeah,
spectacular. I was a bit disappointed with the album. I was like, it was a bit folky and a bit. I was like,
yeah.
oh, what's going on here?
It's a strange one, isn't it? We toured with them actually in America, and they, yeah, it's a strange one because that song is so something, and the rest of the stuff is not that.
Yeah, yeah, that's a better way of putting it. Yeah. I didn't want to slag it off, but
Yeah.
yeah. But his solo stuff's decent though. I
Oh,
really like some of the stuff that he's been doing. Um, so where was indie clubbing for you?
oh
Was it?
yeah. So yeah, I never went to like clubbing because I was
Mm,
my age meant so my brother's 2.5 years old and he went clubbing like raves and Leeds was a big place for raves. It was really like I mean it was major. People would travel to Leeds for certain club nights. Back to Basics you might have heard of and
yeah,
so but I was just I was too young for that. So I went to so then when like Britpop started, that's when I started going out. And so it was obviously like for me it was indie clubs. So Cockpit was there was two that I'd go to every week. That was the Underground um Move On Up. That was Move On Up on a Wednesday night. Mod. It wasn't even Britpop. It was just mod 60s.
Yeah.
And then Friday night was Brighton Beach at the Cockpit. That was mod in one room and sort of bangers, and they were all current. No, but it wasn't. So the main room was like, you'd have everything: Supergrass, Pulp, Oasis, Cast, and then you'd have the Small Faces in the big room
Yeah.
as well. Very, very informative and brilliant, and the vibe was amazing, and everyone put a lot of effort into their outfits.
Yeah.
It was very mod, and it was just like, without that, my whole life would have been completely different. Like
Yeah.
when I'm very lucky to be, I was 16 when like when the first Oasis songs came out,
Yeah.
and so I'm very lucky to have hit that perfect moment. It's good.
Wonderful. I'm going to, while we're talking Leeds, I'm going to ask you now to tell me a favourite song from an artist from your home county, please.
Yeah. Well, I've gone for the Cribs as my. I love the Cribs,
Great, aren't
and
they?
yeah, I've done so much touring with the Cribs that I know their songs more from live than listening to. But the one I've chosen is "We Can No Longer Cheat You" from their second album, I think, the New Fellas, and they're so brilliant. If you don't know the Cribs, then you've got to check out all of their stuff.
Yeah.
It's brilliant.
Talk about a little bit about when you were sort of coming through in the early days. Like, were the Cribs floating about then? Was there like that kind of
Yeah,
sort of local scene? And how
yeah.
exciting did that feel?
So yeah, I think I used to DJ, like I said, and we had a night called the Village Green Preservation Society um, after the Kinks album, and that was a whole idea. That the idea of that was to flip from all. So I had another club. We had two nights. One was called Pigs, and that was all about like garage and New York and all that sort of what they call now indie sleaze. That was indie sleaze.
Yeah.
But I was really switching on to, because we just started the Kaiser Chiefs at that point, and I was like, we've got to be the opposite. That was our whole sort of mantra was, we're going to be the opposite of everything that's popular, and that's how we're going to get big. Um, so we ditched everything that was to do with like the New York scene and did everything really, really British. Um, and so the Village Green Preservation Society was our antithesis night that we had,
Yeah.
do all that stuff. And the Cribs would come every week to that. And they'd been going a bit, so they'd had an album out at this point. And we put them on as well. They did a show there, which was intensely crazy because there was no stage, it was just them playing, and everyone was just it was just a mad it was a tiny, tiny bar with like too many people and just jumping on each other. It was amazing. So they would turn up, and so I knew them from then. And then I can't remember whether I think we just did. I don't know. We just as soon as we could, we asked them to play with us on gigs, and we ended up touring with them all the time, like everywhere: America, Australia, not Australia, Japan, Europe. Yeah, it's good.
Love it. Nick, it's your last track, and I'm going to ask you to tell me a song that you think many people may not know that you would
Okay,
like them to hear, please.
so my first answer it was the "Everyone Says Hi." Have
Right.
we mentioned that that's my new band?
We're
But
going to
yes,
do a massive plug for that in a moment.
so I've got this new band with an album out, and so I've gone, well, that's the songs that I would recommend. But aside from that, there's a band that also we used to tour with. I think that's a great way of finding new bands when you're on
Mm.
tour and people, you're always looking for supports and stuff. And so we did this American tour with this band from America, I think, or Canada.
Vancouver.
Are they right? Okay. Called The Organ, and it was like five girls, indie, sounded like The Cure. It was so cool, and I loved them. I thought they were amazing. And they kind of did one album and split up, which is a shame because they were brilliant. And I don't even know if they ever came to England to do any gigs or anything. But there's one album out there, and the song I recommend is Brother. Um, so Brother by The Organ, and it's just so brilliant. It's perfect. It's amazing. I love it. And
Yeah,
I'll
it's an absolute cracker. And Nick, we make it really easy for everyone to go and listen because we put a little Spotify playlist together with
awesome.
all of the tracks that we've spoken about today.
Okay.
And obviously, we'll be putting some of your music on there. So this is the bit where I kind of
Okay.
segue into to chatting about everything that you've been up to. So last time we spoke, you was a solo artist,
Yeah.
and now you've got a band. I've noticed that you've got uh, Pete, who was in the Kooks in the band as
Yes.
well. And
Yeah.
so why put a band together?
Okay. So when I spoke to you, it was 2018, and we did. It was my solo album, which kind of came out of nowhere. I didn't even realize I was going to do it. I just did it, and it came out. And then, so straight after touring, we had a baby, and then straight after that, COVID, and then took a couple of years doing COVID and doing other things, and then I started writing. I just had this song that occurred to me, and I thought, well, that's good. That doesn't sound like somebody else. I was writing for other people, that doesn't sound like somebody else. That sounds like me. I'm going to sing this. So I started writing that one, and then gradually I got more songs, and I just invited my friends to join in, really collaborate, which was a really good thing to do because on my solo album, I wanted to do something that was just me, entirely me. So I did everything. I wrote it all, sang it all, played it all, recorded it all, and uh, and put it out. And I think that was just me getting that out of my system. This time I wanted to collaborate, see what other noises I could make with other people. So it kind of became a band quite naturally. And so we're a band now.
Did it
Good.
feel nice being having a band around you again?
Yeah. Yeah, it's great. It takes the pressure off. Um, you can make decisions between you. And also because the people in this band have all been in other bands. So you mentioned Pete from the Kooks, who I've known since I was like a teenager in Leeds. Um, Glenn on drums from Howling Bells, Ben, who is used to be in the Dead 60s. He's on piano, and then our friend Tom, who's just a mate from Leeds. We get on very well, and everyone have done their main bit, done their main band, and now it's a much calmer environment. There's a lot less sort of ego. It's very enjoyable. The gigs are amazing. We just played in Liverpool on Friday night. It's just amazing. And because the album's out, people are singing like it was weird actually. I expect some oldies to turn up.
Yeah.
But in Liverpool on Friday night, there was majority like kids, like young teenagers singing the words. I was
You
like,
still
well,
down with the kids, Nick?
I don't know what's going on. But honestly, everywhere we go, there are teenagers singing the words. It's bizarre.
That's great.
And girls as well. Like not just like muso boys like stroking their chins, actual, people having a good time. It's amazing.
Do you feel there's less pressure doing this now as a band?
Yes, but I do want to make it big, I do. It just keeps getting, but it's not my, like, so when I wanted to make it big when I was 20, it was like the world pivots on whether my world is pivoting on this band. So it's less stress than that.
Yeah.
But I want to do everything to the maximum, yeah.
You still feel as ambitious now as you did then?
Uh yes, but without the desperation.
Yeah.
That whole 2003, 4, 5, when we first started in 2003, and we'd been signed before. We'd had a band like Parva, and we'd been signed, we'd been dropped, we'd tasted what it's like to be on the road, and we wanted that. And so there's a lot of personal pressure, desperation. This
But
is our
that desperation, like being a young band, and that does create an energy as well, though,
yeah,
doesn't it?
yeah, yeah. There was a really good energy in our band. It was Me and Ricky had a real sort of um what's the word? You know, like in Spinal Tap, fire and ice
Yeah,
and lukewarm water, someone else. It was great. It was the perfect combination of sort of friction and I think all bands have got to be, let's say all young bands have got to have friction and mad desperation at the heart
absolutely,
of it.
absolutely. So you've just finished the tour. So what's next, Nick?
Next is more gigs. Yeah, it's been really sort of mad till now, and then we've got to get more. We're looking at festivals and looking at touring later on in the year. But right now, I've got a few weeks off where I'm just going to write some more songs.
Lovely. And if people want to keep up the speed with everything that's going to be happening, where's the best place to do that?
Instagram,
Okay.
that is the way.
Wonderful. Well, if it's cool with you, when we drop this episode, we'll tag you in it. So
Yeah, yeah,
if people aren't following you already, then we'll make it nice and easy
yeah.
for them to do so.
Very good.
Nick, it's been an absolute delight talking
Yeah, it's
records
been
with you
fun, isn't it?
today. You've chose some absolutely fantastic records, and it's nice to catch up again. And I wish you
Yeah.
all the best
Thank you.
for this year in the record, mate.
Cheers, mate.
I'm going to press stop. Don't go
See you,
anywhere.
everyone.